Hey there guys, what is going on? It is Gale right here, back on the channel once again, and today we are here with the video that I've been promising for a very long time, and that is my community reaction to whether Raiden Shogun needs buffs or not. Now, of course, I did do a short for this a couple of days ago, so if you want to be part of future ones, be sure to subscribe to the channel, of course. You guys will be notified when I upload a short or a video, and then you guys can obviously leave your comments and I might read them at a certain point. And of course, I made a short on whether Raiden Shogun needs buffs or not, which I got a lot of responses, and of course we'll address them as we go along. And if you want to enjoy this video, hit that like button, subscribe as I said to the channel so you get notified as to when I upload a video. And then of course comment down below your thoughts on what I've said. Do you guys agree with me, disagree with me? Do I think I'm underselling it? Do I think I'm overselling Baal's strength maybe? But yeah, let's get right into it. So of course, like I said, we got quite a decent amount of comments, some obviously for it, some obviously against it. And frankly speaking, I'm right down the middle as well. I feel like maybe she herself doesn't need buffs. It's more so obviously the element that needs buffs. But before we get into it, I'm gonna bring up one of the people who put up their comments, and it was a very long comment, so it might have to be in like 2 images kinda. But shout outs to Soul of an Artist. He's done a lot of testing with A over the last 3 days, and he's talked to other 3 crafter friends as well. And I'm gonna go through his 3 points. So his first point is lack of synergy. His second point is weapons and skills that should work don't. And then his final point is Electro is just a bad element. So I'm going to address the third point first. Electro is just a bad element. I 100% agree with that. Right now, Electro is nowhere near the best element by any means of the imagination. It is by far the worst element, arguably. Because right now, you could argue that, oh, it's between Electro and Hydro. But my argument for Hydro is that Hydro is still a relatively unpopulated element, right? We have a bunch of supports for Hydra, and the only DPS unit is Tartaglia. And Tartaglia is really good for Hydra, especially if you pair him up with Zhang Ling and his team, right? So to me, we can't really judge Hydra just yet. Whereas Electro, you have every weapon type available in the game. You have literally supports, DPS, everything there, and yet it doesn't perform to the same capabilities as a Pyro unit, as a Cryo unit, as a Geo unit. So what is the issue there? So to me, first and foremost, is its resonance. Like, let's take, for example, if we wanted to place Raiden and Sarah in the same team, all they get is the ability to generate an electro elemental particle when they get a reaction going off, right? Which to me is, it's not it's a decent ability, but not something that you need, especially in a team with Raiden and Sarah, especially with Raiden having easily 250% plus ER, which is what you should be building her towards, right? So to me, again, the resonance, massive changes. Overhauls need to be made there. Just like how Geo had that massive overhaul for their resonance, it's the same situation here. Secondly, if you look at all 3 of their reactions with Electro, which is Superconduct, Overload, and Electrocharge, Superconduct is solid because it reduces physical resistance, but yet again, what characters use physical damage? The only one that comes to mind is of course Eula, and that's Cryo, right? And of course you could potentially use Shongyun as an option as well, but you're primarily, and even then with his skill and E or whatever it is, you can infuse Cryo into him, so that whole situation with physical resistance is demolished. You could use Razor for physical res down, which is great, but again, you're not going to be using it. It's only 2 characters out of a roster of like 20 plus characters, right? So again, Superconduct, not necessarily the best option here. Overload is really solid in terms of dealing damage, basically causing an AoE explosion. But yet again, it's still weaker compared to its other damage dealing reactions in Vaporize and Melt. So it's like, well, okay, whatever works. And then Electrocharge is basically, it basically allows you to get an electro damage, tick damage on the opponent, which is cool. Again, cool, but not as impactful as other reactions. So how do you change this? How do you improve the element, right? How do you change it to make it better? First and foremost, the resonance, change it up. Give it something like maybe reducing the electro resistance by an enemy, or just like how Geo changed to having a minus 20% Geo res, right? Similarly, electro resistance, drop it down. Give it something extra than just an electro elemental particle. Maybe something along the lines of potentially more electro damage, potentially, or something like that, right? Um, it's something that needs to be improved overall, that just doesn't give you one particle basically, and especially an electro elemental particle. It's not even multiple, it's one. So yeah, just an improvement in the resonance would help a lot. The next thing I would say about the likes of superconduct, overloaded, and electrocharged, a lot of it might be down to, I think, making it a little bit more tactical. Maybe adding a buff or debuff to whatever reaction you get. Maybe something like that. I think that would be something good. In my personal opinion, I think that would help massively and allow Raiden Shogun to be in a lot more teams, as well as just improve all Electro characters in general. So to me personally, I genuinely think it needs to improve massively. Electro in general is where Geo was, but I feel like, especially how much Geo improved, it's probably the worst element. Like I said, Hydra will get the benefit of the doubt until we get obviously the polearm and claymore user for them, and a bit more in terms of unit selection. But for now, I'd say Electro is by far the worst. Obviously, let me know in the comment section down below which element do you think is the worst one. Because I think obviously Cryo, Pyro, and Geo are like top. Like, not even a question. Animo's up there as well. And then you have obviously Hydro, obviously lacking in terms of just units. And then Electro has a good population, but just a disappointing set of reactions as well as resonance, unfortunately. The next thing he talks about is lack of synergy, which here I'm very 50-50 on, because I mean, I've been using Raiden quite a bit in co-op and in general as well, and frankly speaking, I've been using it, I've been seeing other people use it, and just in general, I see where he's coming from, because when you look at it on paper, the best team you're gonna put Raiden on is probably a Eula team, or if you have the physical capabilities, aka if you have the money, you can probably make a DPS team with her, obviously with the likes of C6 Sarah, her, and then obviously some supports in the sidelines to get that extra damage, maybe like a Bennett or something, I don't know. You might want to go for something like that, or Xingqiu even. But again, I can see where he comes from. I, however, do feel, and coming back to the point I was trying to make, is I do feel like there isn't that much of a lack of synergy, I feel. Yes, in terms of dealing extreme damage or whatever it is, if you are trying to use A as a DPS, which let's be real, I'm gonna be very frank here, she isn't meant to be DPS off rip. Like, her constellations add into that DPS. I think that's a lot of units just add into DPS via constellations rather than improving support. Raiden is a support at the end of the day if you have her at C0. No questions asked, no questions asked, no questions dealt with, kind of thing. You are going to be using her as a battery. You're going to be using her as a charge, basically. Of course, you can take advantage of the electro damage she does, obviously, as well. But for the most part, you're going to be using her as a battery. Now, he does mention some stuff about the fact that, you know, the Thunder is taking over priority over the Pyro when ice is applied. We did do some testing. Again, I can't really say it's 100% the case. I think there are some cases where the superconduct will take priority over the pyro melt, unfortunately. However, in the testing, myself and a friend of mine, or I say a friend of mine, a mod of mine on Twitch, we tested it out. We didn't have that many issues with that. We kind of went plain sailing. The melt applied before the cryo, before the electro was even anywhere near it. But again, I think it just depends on how quickly you're inputting it and the situation you're in. Because the situation we were in, we just didn't encounter that at all for some reason. But yes, another thing I did see, and this is something that even Frey, I'm going to put him up here in a second as well, is that her E is not the best. I will agree, like I said, at C0 especially, her E is quite weak, frankly speaking. That's not even a question. But again, like I said, not supposed to be a DPS unit. It's as simple as that. She is not meant to be a DPS unit. I think a sub DPS is her next best slot, but support is the main thing to go if you're going for C0. Once you hit C2, then you obviously start considering obviously the DPS roles she can take, of course. But I do feel still, I think when you're in a high energy cost situation and everything, you're gonna use Raiden. I will say something. I think it was Asian guy streamer said it. Eula and Raiden have a very similar issue in which the mobs are too weak in the overworld to be able to use their extreme potential. And then if you look into Abyss, you need high energy cost units to be able to run with Raiden to get that full advantage of that battery that she has, right? So it's a lot of things here and there. I do feel like a lack of synergy also comes down to the situation with Electra as a whole. So once you solve one issue, I think the other issue is also solved. So I think it's also a matter of like waiting until the Electro buffs come. If anything, once those come in, I think the lack of synergy issues get solved automatically, personally, to me. So again, let me know in the comment section down below. I kind of feel like I'm over defending Raiden a bit here, but I feel that way based on my usage of her. I just don't feel the same thing in regards to the lack of synergy, at least based on the tests I've done with people, without people, in co-op, etc. So to me, I think it's a matter of like seeing what happens with the electro buffs, if it'll ever happen. Another thing I want to also add, however, as well, is that I do feel one thing, and I can see where people come from. At C0 especially, Raiden can feel like she can be replaced by anybody else, especially at higher constellations for lower units, which is fair. I think that's a completely fair statement. I do believe that is the case. I don't think that's a negative necessarily. I always think of that as a positive in that, you know, you can probably take a 4-star at C6 and replace it with a 5-star. I think that should be the case for most gachas, to be honest. It's like FGO in that regards, where 1-stars to 5-stars all are usable. Obviously, 5-stars are much more usable when you get dupes in them, or, you know, when you can synergize them extremely well and everything. But when you're at C0, or when you're at no dupes and, you know, your weaker units or lower rarity units are higher constellations and higher talents or whatever it is, you're going to be better, right? So to me, I think that's also a thing, and I'm okay with that. I'm not too fussy about that front, or that she can be outclassed by something that's at C6, at, you know, C6, C5, C4, whatever it may be, and is a 4-star unit. The next thing he obviously mentions is the weapons and skills that should work don't. Yes, now this I think is a big issue. I think this is more a bigger issue than a lot of people perceive it to be. I've kind of brought this into my head canon a bit as to why it doesn't work. Obviously, it's not necessarily the truth, because I'm pretty sure it's just bad language in terms of like they haven't translated it well, or, you know, shifted it or localized it well, or even there they haven't done it properly. And the one thing is that the biggest issue that everybody has is that Baal's or I should say A's burst doesn't work with Beto's ult either. So it's weird, because originally, apparently, in the beta, and I always say don't trust the beta because things can change, and that's why I can see why MiHoYo doesn't want beta testing to get leaked, and I also see why you shouldn't always rely on beta testing, because things change. Ganyu changed, Baal changed, everything can change, right? And it's the same thing here, I feel, as well. The one thing I will, however, say, though, is that there is a big inconsistency, and this is what, obviously, Soul of an Artist is saying, is between Beto and Jingshou. Jingshou basically says, for his Water Blades, when normal attacks go off, they doesn't say go off, but during normal attacks, Water Blades will do this, and that, right? And then Beto's is when normal attacks and charge attacks hit. I repeat the word, hit. Then only will it proc whatever it is, right? And I think that's where this issues lie, is where Jingshou, his wording is slightly different compared to Beto's, and I think that's what makes the difference, and that's how they perceive it in the game itself as well. Where Jingshou applies to any normal attack animation, whereas Beto's relies on the hits, and obviously Raiden Shogun's burst is, well, burst damage. It's not normal attacks, charge attacks, or plunge attacks. It's all burst damage, right? I think that's where the issue is. I personally do believe they need to fix that quite a bit. Either make it so that it is like on the dot, like literal, like tell us to our faces, because to us, we'll take it on face value, right? We're gacha players at the end of the day, and we're gamers. We don't know what goes on the dev's mind. We don't know what they're thinking when they're making this stuff, right? So to us, we look at everything on face value. We see what we get, and we go about with that, right? So to me, I believe they need to clear it up massively. That's a big issue there, in my personal opinion, where if there is an inconsistency or if there is a confusion, the team and MiHoYo need to clarify it by either changing the text of the units themselves massively to the point where we can understand it a lot better, or just make both work. And it's as simple as that. And I would prefer if it worked, because it originally was that way. It originally worked. But to me, yeah, that is it is. I do believe that should be the case, man. I definitely do believe that should be the case where they just clarify it, man, because that's a big issue. That is definitely a big issue. All right, but yeah, that's my thoughts on what Soul of an Artist said. Like I said, I agree with quite a few things he said, but I somewhat disagree with some of the stuff he said. For the most part, I do agree. Like, I see where he's coming from. I would obviously make it a bit more easier for MiHoYo to, actually be able to do it. Like I said, I still believe like the Electro buffs is the key to success for whatever Raiden Shoguns and any of the Electro units issues are, to be honest. The next thing is, of course, her E cannot hit shields. Now, this is something that Frey mentioned, and I have to agree. I think that's stupid that her E cannot hit shields. I think that's kind of dumb. I believe it should always have hit shields. I don't understand why they don't do that. Again, the rest of the points Frey says is similar to the whole Beto Jingshou situation and the wordings and everything, so I'm not going to go more in depth with that. But I do believe her E should be able to hit shields. It's not even a question. That is a buff they need to give her 100%. Outside of that, I'm going to go over some stuff. I think her kit will be great with harder content. She shreds mobs before I can actually pop her stacks Lamafal. Griffith, like I said, same thing Asian guy streamer said. Very similar situations. And he said, if anything, they need to buff and fix electro reactions. Agreed. The next thing I will say is this guy, Faihar Aldernari. I hope I pronounced her name right. Your expectations are too high because she's an Archon. Are you going to ask for buffs every time an Archon appears? That's why MiHoYo allows you to test the character before gacha. Here, I can agree with this. I think this is something that I can agree with. I do believe people have too many expectations from units, especially since the release of Ganyu and Hu Tao, who we can classify as hyper carries, right? So to me, I think I have to agree with this statement. I don't think people should go in with too many expectations because things change during beta, things change before release, and honestly, it's better to not expect a hyper carry because I only believe they'll ever give hyper carries to units that are low in popularity so that they can sell more. That's how I believe they'll function. Whereas most units will have to expect to be above average or good, or absolutely useless to use, like Kokomi and Yoimiya, to be honest. At least based on what we know of Kokomi. So to me, I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, these are my thoughts. Obviously, again, well, we've spent nearly 18 minutes on it, and pretty much everything's been covered. I think the major points have been covered. For a quick TLDR, by the way, I'm just gonna quickly say it. I do believe she needs. I do believe Electro needs buffs, which will fix her synergy issues if she has any. For you guys, of course, which I can understand where you're coming from in that regards as well, though. But I personally disagree with that statement, to be honest. And then, of course, the clarification of the text. I think that's the biggest thing. The clarification of the text. Once you clarify the text, or make it so that it's actually it actually says what the tin can does or whatever it may be, it should be the case. Now, again, do I think she'll be buffed? Probably not. Do I think Electro will get buffed? At a point, yes. I do believe inevitably it will get buffed. We've seen it with Geo, and I think, if anything, they'll want to buff the Electro element itself rather than Raiden Shogun herself. I don't think they want to do another Zhongli. I think it's quite clear in that regards. But again, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of this? I tried to cover most of the points. Hopefully I didn't appear as if I was, defending MiHoYo too much, because I do agree with a lot of the points people are making. I just don't feel like it's completely necessary of like doing everything at once. I'd say the priority right now for MiHoYo is to fix Electro. That's pretty much my words to them. And then, of course, clarifying the words of like the normal attacks, charge attack situation, burst damage, whatever it may be. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, like I said, what do you guys think? And hopefully you guys have a lovely rest of your day. I'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.